Part 2. That's at the bottom of page 10. Yes? If we read, and I'm also, it says, no appeal shall lie or shall be brought from or in respect of any decision of any court in or for Grenada to any court, tribunal, or other body whatsoever, except only to the Caribbean Court of Justice in accordance with Section 104 of this Constitution. The clarity that I'm seeking here, because we are at a stage where we can help the court in terms of managing issues that come to it for clarity. Section 103, I'm interchanging between 104 and 103, so just bear with me. I'll tell you when. Section 103 of the Constitution, which I keep using mine here. Section 103, colleagues, I have the whole Constitution, that's page 83, so tell me. 99. Section 103 addresses appeals to the Court of Appeal. Yes? So Section 103 allows you to go from the High Court to the Court of Appeal. I'm a bit concerned that this amendment may give rise to an individual arguing the following. Because 104B, which addresses no appeal shall lie from any court for Grenada except to the Caribbean Court of Justice, there's a possibility that it can be interpreted that you cannot go to the Court of Appeal. So you go to the High Court, and you then have to go to the Caribbean Court of Justice. I know this is not the intention, so probably if we were to say, no, that's okay now. Yeah. If we were to say, subject to Section 103, I'm just suggesting that 104B, if we start by saying subject to Section 103, then that will take care of the issue. Because 104B, as it is written, says that no court, no appeal. It says, no appeal shall lie or shall be brought from or in respect of any decision of any court in or for Grenada to any court, tribunal, or other whatsoever, except only to the Caribbean Court of Justice. I don't know if I have it right in terms of a possible interpretation, because no, I know that 103 speaks about the Court of Appeal. 104, because it is an amending section, I'm wondering whether or not someone may argue that 104 now has precedent over 103. That could be clarified. I'm only raising the concern that I have here. Yes? So that's one issue. And then I'm just go to the final concern. Issue that I want to raise. Colleagues, I think that's, you can deal with 37.1. Yes. So that would be, yes, that would be the issues that I have. So I've raised, just let me make sure, I've raised the issue of the prescribed amount. I've raised the issue of the prescribed amount. I've raised the issue, yes, prescribed. Have I raised the issue 37.1, sorry, 37.7 and section 6. And then I have raised the issue with what appears to leave leeway for someone to argue that the Court of Appeal does not come into play with the amendment. And these are the clarities I'm seeking, and I'm about to sit. But just to repeat, the issue of the CCJ has been part of one Caribbean court system, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the CCJ, which is distinct from the High Court, the Court of Appeal, as Caribbean base, and the Privy Council not having any jurisdiction over an election petition, I could have understood this and accepted. However, because we are accepted, and I am accepted, that the CCJ is the way to go, it has now given us one seamless court system. High Court, Court of Appeal, and CCJ. An election petition must be able to be heard up to the level of the CCJ. If there is an issue of concern of time, mechanisms can be put in place to address time. Colleagues, that's my contribution to this matter.
Senator Cox. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, I rise to give my full support to the Constitution of Grenada, Caribbean Code of Justice, and renaming the Supreme Court Amendment Bill 2018. Mr. Deputy President, I had a few things I wanted to say initially, but I think seeing that I am making comments on the heels of a fellow colleague, Senator Lewis, I just think it's instructive that I just address some of those issues while I have them fresh in my mind. I think one of the most instructive things that was mentioned by Honorable Senator, I think when he commenced his contributions on this bill, had to do with the issue of rush. And I seek to clarify that the issue of the CCJ, there is no rush about it. And there is a clear historical transit that shows there is no rush about the CCJ. Mr. Deputy President, in 1901, an editorial published in the Jamaican Gleaner speaking to having our own courts. That is more than 100 years ago. In 1970, the sixth meeting of the Commonwealth Heads of Government proposed a regional court of appeal. In 1989, CARICOM Heads of Government at its 10th meeting agreed to establish the CCJ. In 2001, on Valentine's Day, an agreement was signed to establish the CCJ. On the 16th of April 2005, the inauguration of the CCJ Court of Appeal in Port of Spain. And we could go on thereafter. So I don't see this as an issue of rush. It's over 100 years the discussion of our court in the Caribbean has been in discussion. So I believe that was important for me to clear that issue up. Another critical thing that was mentioned is the issue of wanting the CCJ, supporting the CCJ. Mr. Deputy President, but I think what was instructive in the comments by our honorable member was that the suggested amendments, if those were not sought, he will personally go out and advocate against. I think that says something. While I respect his decision of putting forward his amendments, but going the extra mile to ensure that other persons should not vote because of something that he feels passionate about, I think that was a little bit instructive for me, and I just wanted to raise that. But I think a critical issue, most critical, that was mentioned earlier in the day, is our dear Honorable Senator passion for the disenfranchised, the vulnerable, as he indicated when we spoke on the land matter. And so what is being said is that If a small portion, be it the Parliament, is not in some way covered under this amendment or to our Constitution, the greater part of the nation should be sacrificed. If I'm wrong in my analysis of what is put forward by our dear colleague Senator, well then I stand corrected. So, Mr. Deputy President, I just wanted to touch on those. And also, I think the issue of the amendment on page 10 regarding the issue of the appeal. But if you look at starting higher up, just above where it says part 2, in insertion of section in the Constitution, it says that a decision of the Court of the Justice, the Caribbean Court of Justice shall be final. 104A, decisions of the Caribbean Court of Justice shall be final and shall not be subject to any appeal. This basically is informing us that the CCJ is the final court of appeal and not the only court of appeal. So I think in terms of clarity regarding the issue of 103 in the Constitution, I don't see an issue there. All right? Because it says it's the final court. As you know, we have the Magistrates Court, or High Court, and a Court of Appeals, but the CCJ is the final court. So I don't know if that helps in clarity for him, Mr. Deputy President, but that's just my observation as regards to the amendment bill before us. But, Mr. President, I think one of the most critical things in going back to some earlier statements that this amendment does, and is the issue of access. And access is critical. It's very critical. Despite whatever challenges that we have currently with our court system, the issue of access to a final court still remains an issue. If we were to address all our legal challenges in the morning, Mr. Deputy President, the issue of access to the final court of appeal remains. There are two distinct, different issues. We are not saying that the issue, the challenge that we have with our high court system is not one that doesn't need addressing, but they are separate and apart. If we were to fix everything in the morning, Mr. Deputy President, the issue of being able to access the Privy Council remains. And that is a fact. So the issue of access, I believe, is critical. The ordinary person or the person who cannot afford, Mr. Deputy President, I believe that this affords an excellent opportunity for them to better access the final court of appeal. And so I think this is somewhat understated. But, Mr. Deputy President, I think what is before us is an excellent opportunity. It's an excellent opportunity as a nation, not as a government, not as a party, but as a nation, for us to do what is right for us as a people. I know I am not probably old enough, but I'm certain that some of the most senior heads around who can recall in 1973 when our then leader, Sir Eric Machigeri, took the bold decision. I certain that there were numerous buts and oppositions. Numerous. I'm quite certain about that. And we are at a similar situation where a significant decision we're about to take on the future of our country. And I think some persons are in that mindset. But there is sufficient evidence. There is sufficient records to show that we are making a bold step, and we should do that. We have existing CCJ courts, and I haven't heard any adverse issues regarding those current courts. While they seem pretty young, but there aren't any glaring issues thus far. And so I believe that this time is now, and the time is right for us to support this national initiative. Mr. Deputy President, with these few words, I give my support to the passage of this amendment bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. I stand to express my full support for the CCJ amendment bill, and many of the salient points in support of the ascension to the appellate jurisdiction of the court have already been raised and traversed by the honorable members. I think everyone by now is acquainted with independence, access, affordability. And what I have found in speaking to people generally is that despite all of the benefits of the CCJ, all of the advantages encapsulated in those three categories, there is still an unwillingness to leave what is familiar to them. And that familiarity is with the colonial judicial system. I stand here in full support of the CCJ, not really because of those points, but because of my personal experience with the Privy Council as a young attorney in practice. In 2015, I had the opportunity to work with a client, myself and other attorneys. And this gentleman was a hardworking gentleman. I would say he's middle class. He earned a decent salary, drove a vehicle, and unfortunately, he was involved in an accident that cost him one of his limbs, and he was unable to get the requisite benefits from the NIS. There was an issue of the interpretation of what it meant to be in the course of employment. So the benefits were withheld from him on the basis that when the accident occurred, he was not in the course of his employment. The matter went to the High Court, and he lost. The matter went to the Court of Appeal, and he lost. So the next step was the great Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Now, I heard in the consultation we had in the Trade Center, I heard a learned attorney say that it's easy to go to the Privy Council. You can just, buy a plane ticket and go to England and go argue before the Lords of the Privy Council. I mean, if you need surgery, you can perform it yourself. So I don't think it would be wise to be advising our citizens that if they want to make their case before the Privy Council, they should just take a trip up to England and go before the court and present their cases. I think it would be more prudent to advise them to get the proper legal counsel. Because even attorneys in the Commonwealth jurisdictions, they are not fully acquainted with the processes of the Privy Council or the processes of the courts in England. Yes, we're attorneys, but we don't know everything. So the normal course of things is that the attorney in the Commonwealth jurisdiction would have to get an agent in England to bring the case before the Privy Council. So you have to pay an attorney or a firm in England to present your case, to file your documents, and argue before the Privy Council. I mean, you can also travel there, but for the filing processes, you have to get an agent. So we were able to make contact with a firm in the United Kingdom. Now, apart from the filing fees of the Privy Council, there's the counsel fees. Now, for that particular case, the attorney in England, his fees were about £35,150. That's just his fees. And then you had disbursements, things like photocopying and filing fees, which were about £9,000. So in all, it came up to 40-something thousand pounds. Yeah? So you multiply that by 4-point-something or 5. So it means that this gentleman had to fork out over $100,000 to have his case heard. And that is excluding the cost of travel to London, the cost of accommodation. And as I said before, he was a man of some means, but he was unable to afford the fee. So we had to seek the assistance of a financial institution. Something had to be mortgaged in order to pay counsel. And they demanded £20,000 up front before they could do everything. So my role as a junior attorney, I was sort of like the secretary communicating with counsel in England. So we started that process in 2015, and then there was a constant back and forth. So we had to send documents, copy the pleadings, the record of proceedings, you know. Eventually, we were able to get a court date in March of 2017. So documents were being filed up to that point. And then in November 2016, so we started the process in 2015. The hearing date was March 2017. In November 2016, we got correspondence from counsel in London saying that he didn't believe in the strength of the case. And he didn't think that we had a chance of succeeding on appeal. This was after a year and a half of working with these attorneys, them having all of the information before them, all of the pleadings, all of the submissions before the High Court and the Court of Appeal. And then at the last minute, after this man had mortgaged whatever he had to mortgage to be able to afford the fees, you're telling us, I don't believe your case is strong enough. I mean, the disrespect, the disregard for the welfare of our clients, it was just, in that moment, I experienced what Senator Steele, Honorable Member Steele, would have referred to earlier in his presentation. But you would have experienced how people in these colonial powers view us in the Caribbean. We weren't worthy enough to be allowed some sort of respect, dignity, forewarning. It was fine for them just to tell us, your case is no longer worth it. I don't care how much money you have to spend. I don't care how much time you have to sacrifice. I don't care about your missing limb. I don't care that you have to go throughout life without the compensation that you may have deserved. We never know because it never went to the Privy Council. But I don't have time for this, so we're not going to take your case to the Privy Council. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Here's the best part. So, of course, we asked for a refund. They said, well, we had to put in a lot of work up to this time. You had to file your documents and so we will not be able to give you a full refund. Yes? So at the end of all of this, this poor man was not able to be reimbursed the full amount of the money that he had sent. And apart from everything else, all these arguments that are being bandied about, at that moment, I knew that the Privy Council was not for us, and we could no longer subject ourselves to the whims and fancies of these people in the United Kingdom. Now, I find it very interesting how the Privy Council is viewed in the Commonwealth realms as opposed to their status in the United Kingdom. Because the Judicial Council of the Privy Council is just a sect or a part of the larger Privy Council. And what the Privy Council is a council of advisors to the Queen, yes? And the Judicial Committee just plays the judicial function. And the Judicial Committee was formed in 1833, the same year that slavery was abolished in the British Empire. And their main function was to provide those legal services to their Commonwealth regimes. Well, not Commonwealth regimes, the colonies. They're not yet Commonwealth. Yes, that was in 1833. Yeah. So the mother country said, all right, we have to provide some legal services for them. So that's what the Judicial Committee would do. That was in 1833. So you're telling me, back in 1833, our colonies were poor populations, uneducated, rudderless, lacking basic social services. That was the state of our colonies back then. And the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council catered to those colonies. But in 2018, almost 200 years later, we have a bunch of independent nations, right, making their own laws, running their own economies, determining their own destinies, and we are still relying on this old vestige of colonialism to have our matters determined. It makes no sense in this day and age, Mr. Deputy President. And especially in light of the fact that we have an excellent alternative in the CCJ. If we had no CCJ, then I would say, okay, we have no choice. But we have an institution that we have already paid for, fully staffed, fully funded, requiring nothing extra from us. We already utilize their original jurisdiction. And all we have to do is say, yes, we're acceding to your appellate jurisdiction. And we are still reluctant to do so. And why is that? Why does the mother colony have this hold on us? I stated earlier about the status of the Privy Council in England. Whereas in the Commonwealth, the Privy Council is our final court of appeal. In the United Kingdom, it is not the single final court of appeal. I mean, for some cases, for some specific matters, it's the final court. But for most cases, the final court of appeal is the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. That's one. Secondly, the judgments of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council are not binding on the United Kingdom. They're binding on Commonwealth regimes, therefore we have to follow their precedent. But if a binding decision of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom or the House of Lords conflict with a decision of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, guess which one takes precedence? The decision of the courts in England. Yes? So while we in the Commonwealth like to laud the Judicial Privy Council, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, in England, to put it in local terms, they're not all of that. Yes? And at this point, the citizens of the United Kingdom are wondering why it is that the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, I'll just start saying Privy Council because that's a lot to keep saying, why the Privy Council is still catering to these former colonies. There was an article in the Financial Times, a London-based newspaper, from September 2009. And, Mr. Deputy President, if you allow me to read a bit, because I don't want to miss out anything from this article. So this is from the Financial Times in London. This is in 2009. I know Senator George referred to some writings from 1967. This is as recent as 2009. The title of the article was Privy Council Hampers Supreme Court. This is the Supreme Court in England they're speaking about. In that article, they refer to the Privy Council as a jurisprudential relic, a post-imperial anachronism. These are British people referring to their own court. So Lord Philip, the President of the Supreme Court, this is the body of the article now. Lord Philip, the President of the Supreme Court, said he was searching for ways to curb the disproportionate time he and his fellow senior justices spent hearing legal appeals from, forgive me, it's very cold. I'm trying not to shake. Let me take that again. Lord Philip, President of the Supreme Court, said he was searching for ways to curb the disproportionate time he and his fellow senior justices spent hearing legal appeals from independent Commonwealth countries to the Privy Council in London. He was concerned that the judges who will staff the Supreme Court would end up spending as much as 40% of their working hours on the Privy Council business. He said, "It is a huge amount of time. I personally would like to see it reduce. It's disproportionate." The president questioned whether some Privy Council cases, which have ranged from Jamaican death row appeals to fights over press freedom in Bermuda, needed to be heard by a panel of 5 of Britain's most senior judges. So our issues are not very important to them. Death penalty, freedom of the press in Jamaica and Bermuda, our most senior judges, we don't have time for that. He added, and this next statement is important, he added that in an ideal world, former Commonwealth countries would stop using the Privy Council and set up their own final courts of appeal instead. Lord Phillips, the President of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. Now, if that isn't enough indication that we should get out, I don't know what is. My mother told me, never let somebody tell you they don't want you more than once. This here is a clear statement to the Commonwealth regimes that we no longer want you. So I am not sure why we are still holding on to them. Now, that was the justices, the judges. Now, what do the people of the United Kingdom think about the Privy Council? In the same article, it goes on to say, many independent observers say this is both an ideological strain and a financial drain on the newly created Supreme Court. The Council Judicial Committee shares both the court's handsome Parliament Square headquarters and access to the dozen judges whose £200,000 a year day job is supposed to be resolving Britain's most important criminal and commercial cases. So your well-paid judges are supposed to be dealing with Britain's criminal and commercial cases. Robert Hazel, director of the Constitution Unit at the University College London, said, "It was a minor public scandal that judges in that country's top court spent more than half of their time on business of no interest to anyone in the UK." So according to the citizenry of the United Kingdom, our business here in our small territories are of no business to anyone in the UK. So they're not sure why their high-paid senior judges are spending time on us. I think probably if this statement was circulated to the public, maybe that would put the CCJ Privy Council debate to rest. Because I think the people need to see clearly before them that we are no longer wanted by the Privy Council. And it is time for us to make our own path and use our own judges and develop our own jurisprudence. Now, you know what the Ministry of Justice said in response to those statements by Lord Phillips? The Ministry of Justice said that how Lord Phillips ran the Supreme Court was a matter for him. So really, there is no interest in any level in hierarchy of the UK government any interest at all in our affairs. Now, Mr. Deputy President, I would like to address the issue that seems to be most nagging or most on the minds of the Grenadian people, which is the current state of our local judiciary. There seems to be an impression that accession to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ would entail taking the focus somehow off the local judiciary or the allocation of resources away from the local judiciary. But that is not the case. The CCJ is already paid for. There are no extra resources that we have to put out in order to accede to their jurisdiction. The issues that we have in the local judiciary can be rectified simultaneously with our accession to the CCJ. Now, what has the Privy Council done for our local judiciary? How does remaining with the Privy Council help to rectify the problems that we face today? But let me tell you what can happen if we accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ. The CCJ, because of its genesis, because it was born from the bosoms of Caribbean nations, have a vested interest in the development of our judicial system. And I am not only stating that, there is evidence of that. And one of the most recent examples is the Juris Project, which was a collaboration of the CCJ and the government of Canada. And the aim of that project was to reduce the backlog of cases within the High Court system in Grenada. And because of the initiative of the CCJ, we were able in, I believe, 2016, we were able to dispose of 165 of the 175 cases that were pending in our system. And that was because of the CCJ. And that is only one project. That is only one project, Mr. Deputy President. So imagine what else we can accomplish with the CCJ. Imagine what other assistance they can lend to our local judiciary. But we will never know unless we accede. Now, Mr. Deputy President, there was one point that I believe I had to raise in relation to the costs of appealing to the CCJ as opposed to the Privy Council. And I believe that the man from Lafayette, is it? Yeah. Not sure why it was Lafayette, but it was an actual person. Okay. I believe the man from he would have particular interest in what I'm about to say. According to the CCJ Appellate Amendment Rules 2008, particularly Section 1017, this section allows applications for leave to appeal or defend an appeal in the CCJ as a poor person. According to this section, an applicant who wishes to obtain leave to appeal as a poor person shall file an application for leave within the court. And if he is forgive me, I'm trying to locate the a person to whom leave has been granted to appeal or defend an appeal as a poor person shall not be required to provide security for costs or to pay any court fees. This is a court that cares about its people. This is a court that considers local circumstances. Yes? This is a court whose main objective is the provision of justice for all, regardless of your economic standing or your financial position. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same of the Privy Council. Mr. Deputy President, I can go on, but I believe I would go into the realm of repeating what has already been said. But I just want to echo the sentiments of the honorable members who have preceded me and express my full support once again for this bill. It is not only a bill that would realize our practical needs, such as affordable justice, justice that is readily provided, justice from independent judicial officers. But it is also a bill that would help to improve our sense of independence, our sense of worth, our sense of self-determination. It is a bill that will tell the students who are here today that there is no ceiling or there is no limit to what they can achieve, and that if any one of them aspire to be a justice on the highest final court in the region, that with the CCJ, they can do so. This bill appeals to that part in all of us. And Mr. Deputy President, this is where I end my presentation. Thank you.
Senator Dr. Winston
Thank you very much, Mr.
Campbell.
Acting President. I rise to support the bill, the CCJ bill. In fact, and I also want to congratulate all those who went before me with all the arguments put forward. I do not want to go over them because it was so well put that I rest on this. But however, I want to make 2 points, 2 very important points. In order for us to win this battle going forward, there are noises out there that we should understand, tame, and control. And to me, the 2 noises that I am familiar with is, one, the issue of the lower courts, the backup system. I know that Senator Williams just made a point with regards to it. It's and it ties into the point of access. Yes, we can have all the arguments that it is easier to go to. We have regulations which state that if you're poor, you can be accommodated. But if you are blocked up in a system and you cannot move towards the other level, then you don't have access. It is like, we say in food security, it's available, but not accessible. So the CCJ, for my part, is available to all of us. It is better. It is one where we can say that it is our luminaries, our legal luminaries are in charge of our system. It's not these colonial masters out there. And as Senator Williams rightly put it, they don't care about us, right? In fact, I want to just take a few minutes to, I spent 19 years in St. Lucia, and I lived between 2 judges. On my right, I had Chief Justice Robotham, and on my left, I had Justice Matthews from Dominica. And it was amazing when we get together and talk how much they leave out the law and they start dealing with the social problems and in depth. And they would question me, as if I was on the stand, and they are interested in the people of the region. And I think that still holds. It's true that both of them have died, but there are others who have taken their place. So the question of having people who would take care of our issues is to me, it's not a problem. And we have brilliant lawyers in our system. But we have to put those resources at the disposal of our people. When I go out and I speak to the fishermen and the farmers, they say, boy, look, I'm not even going back to court again because when I go, I can't see a magistrate and so on. Dunstan Campbell, I had a case of predial larceny, and I went 4 times to the court. 4 times, and every time I go, I cannot, it's not that the magistrate can come or something else. 4 times, And I just decide to give it up. So justice was denied. I didn't get my justice. It was not available, right? But these are the issues. I consider these noises, little noises on the side. The bigger picture is what was presented by my colleagues here. So that's one issue. The other issue is the political interference into the system. We have to assure our people that the mechanisms are in place to prevent political influence in the system. And there are examples of political interference in the system. While working in the OECS in the 90s, I remember a Grenadian judge in one of our islands had to run because of political pressure. Yeah. And we know who that person is, if it's easy to find. Had to run because of political pressure, because of a decision she took. So all of these things are things that we need to manage. These are noises that we need to manage as we move to. We cannot and should not miss this opportunity of the CCJ. It is too important to fail. So we should put together, and do not say, well, of course we talk about partisan and so on. This is the wrong path to go. It is a noise, address it, and let's move forward. So, Mr. President, the Deputy President, I would not say very much more because I know that what has been said here today is sufficient to move us forward. So I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Gawe and Deputy President of the Senate. My contribution towards the CCJ is that I'm in full support of it. However, I believe, as I said before, we have to manage the process properly. The CCJ offers us accessible justice, and it's close to our institutional, people that we trust. That is what I think it can offer us. Based on all the arguments, and having gone through the explanatory memorandum, I want to say that although we at this level will agree, it will not be effective unless point 4 under section 7, it has to be approved on a referendum by not less than 2/3 of the votes validly cast on the referendum. As we manage the process forward, I want us to take the referendum with seriousness so that all the noises will be explained to the persons these will affect. Because most times, for us as lawmakers, we sit, we pass the laws, but the people who it really affects doesn't understand. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think we should manage it that way. I want, although we said about political interference, at the end of the day, the money towards the referendum has to come from the state. So I want to urge that the state uses the money effectively, just as how when we're doing election campaign. Make it interesting so that the people will understand and buy in. Do not set a talk for people in the trade center when you know they cannot access it. We have the schools close in communities. Go into these areas and explain to people what the referendum will mean. I also want to support what Senator Lewis was saying this morning, that the appellate court should be for everyone. At times, we have exclusion, especially for people who are serving in our capacity. And I say so to talk about what he spoke about, the election petition. Everything, if we are believing in the Caribbean Court of Justice, should go to that. And I also want to say, it happens not only in terms of, let's say, Parliament. And I had a vivid example of just having gone to Barbados to netball. And there was this brilliant opening ceremony. And it was a netball tournament for players, Mr. Deputy Speaker. However, at the end of the official ceremony, the persons who were refreshed were the people in the VIP. And I only ended up in the VIP not as a president of netball, but they recognized that I was a senator from another parliament. So I ended up in VIP by default. But there, the players were all there having to play and not being refreshed. And that happens because most times at our level, we can eat easily, but the people who need it really don't get it. And making that point to say, just as here, let us be, as we talk about colonialism and all the ills that happened, let's try and march towards equality and justice for all. And I rest my case to say that I'm in support of the CCJ. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, I don't think I will have to spend long on the floor because my colleagues have done an extremely good job in addressing the matter of the CCJ being our final appellate court. However, I would like to say a few words as it relates to my support for this bill. Yes, I understand many concerns. I understand the concerns of the current delay that we currently have. Yes, I understand the concerns of the perception of maybe political interference. But Mr. Deputy President, I believe the obligations is on us to ensure that we, as parliamentarians and as citizens, educate our peers, educate our constituents on the structure and nature of this bill. Senator, when I look at the vision of the CCJ, and it states to protect and promote the rule of law as a court of final appeal and as a guardian of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas by guaranteeing accessibility, fairness, efficiency, and transparency, delivering clear and just decision in a timely manner. Senator, I feel connected to this vision, not only because I'm a CARICOM national, but more so of the prominent role that the Granans Declaration played in that vision statement. Yes, Senator. The famous Granans, which we all know has wonderful beach and five-star hotel. In 1989, at the 10th conference of the heads of government at our famous Granans, There, the government worked together and came up with a work program with specific agenda to get done within a specific time. Senator, it's kind of the unusual way of saying it, but Senator, it was the Grana's declaration that gave rise to the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. That is highlighted profoundly in the vision statement. Therefore, Senator, I feel proud as a Grenadian. I feel proud as a CARICOM national that it was the Granans Declaration that gave rise or help in the creation of the foundation of the CCJ. It was the Granans Declaration that paved the way for Shanik Mari to defeat the Barbadian government when she was denied entry into the country. Now I understand why Grenadians feel so passionate about this bill. Now I understand why this bill carried a higher yes vote at the last referendum than other bills, because it is deeply connected. Senator, the Caribbean has an identity that we feel passionate about. Institutions and organizations that identified all over the world, like West Indies, the cricket team. That's when they lose, it hurts us very much. And when they win, we feel good. We also feel that we win. And therefore, I will also want to add that we may see another match on February 25th and 27th of the CCJ and the Privy Council again. But this time I'm like November 6th, I'm confident that the West Indies, which I quote unquote put as the CCJ there, will definitely be victorious. So Senator, our University of the West Indies, which is also a profound institution that has given birth to many educated
Deputy President in the chair.
Yes, Mr. Deputy President. Yes, so as I was saying, the Caribbean has given rise to many well-known organizations and institutions across the world. And as I mentioned, West Indies cricket, I also want to make mention of the University of the West Indies, a renowned institution that is producing great lawyers and educated minds that is making the contribution not only in the Caribbean, but across the world. And as Senator Williams would have mentioned, acceding to the CCJ is not just accessing justice, but it also adds another Caribbean identity we can relate to. And also provides hope and show that our young people can aspire one day to be great jurists. As you would have seen when Timothy or Dr. Antoine would have became governor of the ECCB, how great we felt. Someday, maybe someday, or the next president of the CCJ will be from Grenada. And we too, Mr. President, should feel proud when that moment arrives. CARICOM, another renowned institution, an organization that unites us as a people. Mr. President, these are the institutions and systems that I believe makes us all a part of that Caribbean identity. So like my colleagues, I too believe that the time is now to take control. We the people have taken full control of our government. We have taken full control of our parliament, and it is time to take full control of our judiciary. Mr. Deputy President, we are one people from one Caribbean with one struggle, one destiny. It is time to tear down that artificial wall of colonialism and build on the oneness and the Caribbean unity that already exists. The CCG is definitely the way to go, Mr. Deputy President. And like the CC Bird Choir would have done at the opening, and they would have said, get in your section. Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, I think it's time for us to get in our section. It's time for us to get in our direction and support the CCG. Thank you, Mr. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. Mr. Deputy President, I stand to give my unwavering support to the bill that is before us at this point in time. And I want us to be mindful of a number of factors that we should consider. Yes, 2 years ago, we have tried in the referendum to pass this bill, some version of it, and it didn't happen. But most Grenadians recognize the value of the CCJ, and there would have been more responses towards this bill than any other during the time of the referendum. As an indication, probably one, we needed some more time and more information to assimilate all the issues surrounding the CCJ. And I think the 2-year period has given us a good enough platform to bring us to this place where we can send it back again to the people to get it passed. But for some reason, Mr. Deputy President, I don't know why, but there is this taboo associated with courts. We're going to court and people, maybe because folks felt that they didn't get the justice that they desire, or something of the sort. Or maybe, probably how our parents saw it, 1833, when the CCJ, the Privy Council was given to us, that it was heavily weighted on probably protecting the former slave owners and the likes. I don't know. So I tried to get some context as it relates to the court system, and the Bible gave me that. In Exodus chapter 18 and verse 22, the Bible speaks of Moses as judging the people. And he had to do this, and obviously it was a tremendous task. Until his father-in-law came, Jethro, and said to him, this thing you're doing is not good to you. You need to reserve yourself for the harder cases. So appoint lower judges to judge the cases. And those bigger ones, they can appeal to you. And he accepted this. So I want to say that to our people, the court system has been established way back then. So you can, if you have a grievance, if you have an issue, you can go to the system and get redress. One may say, well, my cases have been tied up in the system for such a long time. We have to admit, yes. For a number of years, I've been serving as a juror, and you may come in these sizes and you have probably, let's say, 20 cases on the sheet. And maybe 10 may be dispensed with. But the percentage of cases being dispensed with to the amount you came in with was very small. So one may say, well, we need to fix this first. I agree. We need to do some more there to dispense with justice faster within the local system. But does this in any way will hinder you? Or does this has enough weight to say, if I don't get that done first, no with the CCJ? I do believe, Mr. Deputy President, if we don't go through with the CCJ now,
in our lifetime, we will not see it again. So, in as much as I listen to my colleagues saying, we support it, now is the time we have to make it work. We can fix those other issues, domestic issues that seem to be an issue. We can fix them. And I know we are addressing them because when I listen to Sister, my fellow colleague Williams, Senator Williams, saying, as a benefit of the CCJ with the jurisprudence project, working along with Canada, we had out of the 175 cases that was probably not being coming to the fore for one reason or the other, and they would have dispensed with 110 in that period. 169 and 110. But a large percentage of it was dispensed with. And that was benefit from the CCJ, though we have not acceded to the appellate jurisdiction as yet. But there's benefit there. So we can get the best of both worlds. But my main concern here, Mr. Deputy President, when we're talking about access to justice, I listen to the noise out there, and one of the noise that is there is, this is not for the poor man. Only the big people that will, only the big people can go to the Privy Council. We just heard of a case, actual case. Man had to mortgage, I don't know what big property to raise all this money to get to the Privy Council. So yes, as it is now, only the bigger people in society can access the Privy Council. What we're saying with acceding to the CCJ, we are empowering our little man on the ground and saying, if you feel that justice was not dispensed with you, there is an ability, or we're giving you that ability to go further and access the CCJ to give you justice. So on the 15th of March 2013, Noel Grenada published an article, Mr. Deputy President. He said, landmark decision made by the CCJ. What was this decision about? A young woman, simple young woman from Jamaica, Shanice Myrie, an intern in Barbados in 2011, was searched, given a cavity search by one custom officer, border officer at the Grand Prix Adams International Airport. And to add insult to injury, was apprehended and placed in a cell, not just a cell, a filthy cell, to remain overnight, and then deported the next morning back to Jamaica. A simple black woman who felt aggrieved that she did nothing wrong, but was denied the access to free movement as prescribed in the revised Treaty of Chagarams. The same treaty my dear fellow Senator Cadet eloquently spoke to, that started in the Grenada's Declaration. So yes, Grenada has always been a part of the forward movement and creating things to happen. The Grenada's Declaration gave rise to what we see as the revised Treaty of Chagarams. And within that revised Treaty of Chagarams, freedom of movement within the region, Article 45, was given prominence. And Shanice cited that based on the provisions within that treaty, she was denied access to free movement. And that simple black woman, it could have been, yes, it could have been somebody from Birch Grove. It could have been somebody from St. James in St. Andrews. It could have been somebody from Ladine. It could have been somebody from anywhere, Munlong, wherever. Simple person whom you may want to look down on. They have a fundamental right. And we need to remember that. What we are trying to do here is to say to our young people, to say to our citizens, that you have a cause of redress if you feel your rights have been trampled upon. We don't have it right now with the Privy Council. We don't have the resources. We don't have the wherewithal. Listen to what Sister Katisha, who was involved in this fighting of this case, had to go through with this poor Grenadian man. And where he ended up. Paid so much money and got nothing. Not even your case being heard. So Sister Mary got leave from the Jamaican government to take a case to the CCJ. And she took the Barbados government to the CCJ. And on the 4th of October 2013, the CCJ ruled in saying that yes, her fundamental rights, freedom of movement was interfered with and caused the Barbadian government to pay damages. What does this mean? It is saying that whoever you are, as a poor person, if your rights have been trampled upon, be it in this state, be it anywhere, you can, so long as Grenada accede to the CCJ, you can take your case to the CCJ. And let's look at access. We're talking about access. We're talking about cost. And Sister Katisha went through it, so I don't have to go further into it. As it relates to Section 10.17, applicant who considered to be poor, given leave to appeal the case to the CCJ. But the point I want to elaborate a little more on when she went to part 3. He said, a party to whom leave has been granted to appeal or to defend an appeal as a poor person shall be required to provide security for costs or to pay any court fee. Shall not, be required. What does that mean? You can take a case right now if you have the means to the Privy Council. And yes, as we heard, it would be a hefty amount you will have to pay to get your case heard. But you also will have to ensure that you have the security fees there. Because in the event, Mr. Deputy Chair, that you may have lost the case, the opposing lawyer can ask the court to have you to pay costs, legal costs. So in addition to your own legal costs, you have to pay the cost of the other party. What the CCJ is saying here, if you're considered to be poor, not only will we provide access to you, with you not having to pay monies, but also we're protecting you should you lose the case. There is no way you will be charged to provide security costs to pay for the expense of the other party. When we're talking about access, this is access for the poor man of the Caribbean. And saying to the poor people of the Caribbean, you have a right and you have value, you have worth. We are here to protect it. We need to give access. We need to pass this bill within this country and give access to all our citizens the protection they need. One may say, and I heard this other noise up there, and they say some lawyers don't want to support the CCJ because some of the times they are the ones that drag it out and you didn't get a judgment because they didn't do a good job. I don't want to believe that. I listened to my fellow Senator George, and I listened to fellow Senator Williams, and you could have listened to the passion from the Bowells that they have come through the process as attorneys and realized that this is the way to go to give the protection to our people. So don't tell me lawyers don't want to support it because their own personal issue. No, I don't believe that. What I want to say in closing, Mr. Deputy President, what we're doing here, or what we're asking the people of Grenada, Carriacou, Pitts, Martinique to give support to, is a part of the whole drive towards ensuring that we give opportunities to people to a higher calling. A higher calling in that, Sister Williams said it, our young people can aspire to be the best that they can be if they're looking at the judiciary as their best. They can aspire. They can see themselves being one of those top judges around. But it also is saying to our people that you don't have to be called a Negro boy, as Sister George cited from the case report. You don't have to feel not important, as Senator Steele spoke of when he experienced it himself. But we are saying to our Caribbean people, we're saying to our people in Grenada, Carriacou, and Pitts, Martinique, you are important, and you can see that with the CCJ, that you will be treated fairly, and you will be given the right of place to know that you are a valuable citizen within this region. And I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt, Mr. Deputy President, that the CCJ is the way to go if we really and truly want to be the West Indies we all aspire to be. One nation, one region, one people, recognizing each other as valuable citizens in this one space. Mr. Deputy President, I want to continue to give my full support to this bill and to say to the my fellow Grenadians, this is probably our final moment to make it a reality. On November the 6th, it will not only be Grenada doing it. Antigua and Barbuda will be doing it on the same day like us, because the region has recognized this is the way we have to go. So both countries will be bringing to the people in referendum the CCJ bill. And I believe the people of both countries will give support to it. And I want to thank them in advance for it. Thank you.
Senator Steele.
Mr. Deputy President, in wrapping up this debate on this very important matter, and that is one of the themes that resonated in the chamber this afternoon, is the national significance of this. It rises above partisan politics. It rises above petty debates. It is a matter of real significance for us as a people, and it comes at a critical time. I want to commend all contributors. The quality of this debate is one of the finest I have seen in past term and the short stint we've had so far in this term, I particularly want to commend the new senators on the level of thought, the level of preparation that has been placed on this, and also the approach that has been taken. I've actually had no politics at all in what has been discussed. Highly objective from many different perspectives, but drawing to a common point, and that is we cannot let this opportunity pass us by. Senator Lewis raised a number of points, one of them very deep in its construction, as to elevating the role of the CCJ with regard to the powers or control it could have over our Parliament, as opposed to the limited powers of the Privy Council. And as a matter of recognition of the seriousness and the significance that we place on our own homegrown appellate court. And I am certainly appreciative of the sentiments that lie behind that. I am not sure that the debate in this chamber is actually going to be able to satisfy the depth of that question and the request for us to make amendments based on that. The discussion, I believe, goes far beyond what we are able to the justice we would be able to provide it. And I certainly think that that is a discussion that needs to be taken up, certainly in the first instance, with the advisory committee. TUC have a very active member there, and the debate may even go beyond that. But I don't think it is something I think we can take on this afternoon, but it's certainly something that needs to be captured. And it's a demonstration of what we're coming to expect from Senator Lewis in terms of the attention and the time that he places on important matters that are brought before him. So I certainly don't want to give the impression that we're going to let it evaporate. It is a discussion that needs to be taken up outside of here. But this also says to me, and a matter of personal pride that I have in being part of the process and being part of this debate. I certainly have some very strong feelings and experiences of the justice system in the UK and how black people are treated there, how I have been treated there. And pride in coming home, and being able to serve and offer service. And the confidence I have in our people, real confidence that I have in our people, in our systems. Not that they are perfect, not that there are no issues with it, but the fact that it is ours and it is for us to make those mistakes. Let us make those mistakes. Let us learn from those mistakes. Let us grow and develop as our former colonial masters who've had hundreds of years to evolve and get where they are. And I fundamentally believe, as young and immature as we are mature enough to make our mark, not just here in the region, but on the international stage. We have talent. We have competence. We have ability. And I think the question that is being put before us here in this chamber, and hoping it will pass here this afternoon, so that we can ask the same question of every eligible citizen eligible to vote on November the 6th. For each of us to ask ourselves the question, do we have sufficient faith in us as a people to take this bold step, to say that we are mature enough, to say that we are responsible enough, to say that we want to take ownership of our destiny and to chart our own path. And if that two-thirds majority is achieved, Mr. Deputy President, it will be a historic moment for us as a people. And I believe it will signal the start of the next phase in our journey, not just in independence, but establishing who we are and who we aspire to be as a people by taking charge of our own destiny. And I think we are at a crossroads, and it is something as a nation we must take very, very seriously. But I have confidence and I have faith in who we are as a people. And I believe it is our responsibility, collective responsibility, as senators today, as we're about to be asked to take a vote on this important matter, that we allow this to be taken to the people, for the people to decide, and for us to have faith in that process. So, Mr. President, Deputy President, I think I have heard a consensus from different perspectives, but the overarching message is this is our time. And we have heard all of the reasons why we should support this very important bill. And it's for all that has been discussed, not letting any single comment slip. For all of those reasons, Mr. Deputy President, I commend this bill for its second reading.
Thank you, Senator Steele. And before we go to the second reading, and before I put it, the question on the second reading, I myself want to make a few comments, taking prerogative of the chair. And I know I have precedence for my president. So, like you, Senator Steele, my observations are, I am totally impressed with the quality of the debate. Sitting here in this house for a number of years, you come to expect our debate and the quality to always be of a higher standard than that other place. But in this particular instance, I'm particularly pleased how we have prepared ourselves as senators to deal with the issues of this accession to the CCJ and the issues that have been raised. I mean, we come to expect quality from Senator Lewis. That is no expectation. But our younger senators, in particular, Senator George, Senator Williams, Senator Cadet, have impressed me in the manner in which they have dealt with this issue. As indicated, we have ascended the whole issue of partisan debate on this issue, and we have taken it way above that and into the national realm. And what we see as a people going forward, the importance of the decision that is before us. I don't think I need to rehash all the issues that was raised, accessibility, costs. It's now an itinerant court, use of technology, quality of judges. I want to just add that when we talk about the issue of problems that we have at the lower levels of our court system, the magistracy level and others, the point that was raised by Senator Williams with the Jurist Project, which I was fortunate to be a part of, another hat that I wear, it showed that even though we weren't part of the appellate system of the CCJ was still willing to interject into our civil side of the court and assist directly in getting us to make progress there and to remove significant amount of the backlog. The issue of the use of technology, again, is an initiative coming from CCJ. Down to our high courts, where we could submit things digitally, evidence could be taken across a digital spectrum, and bundles and all of that can be submitted. Again, it's initiatives from that level. And if the CCJ can influence our high courts, I am certain that if we are able to get them more fully involved through our accession to them under the appellate jurisdiction, that we certainly can get them to help us solve some of the issues we have at the magistracy level. And I look at that as an opportunity not to be missed, but rather something that we should take full advantage of in the vein of all the issues that we have. And we can't solve all at one time, but at least it opens a door for us where another one is closed, that being the Privy Council, for us to take advantage of it. So my 2 pence is that I see us, as Senator Steele just indicated, this is an opportunity for us as a people to take a decision and move it to a point where we all believe it is for the greater good. However, it wouldn't come without its challenges. And I think we are up to the challenges. We are mature enough to deal with the challenges. And we will make mistakes. But the greatest things about mistakes is the opportunity it presents for us to improve. And with those few words, I now take us to the second part of this. Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a second time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Constitution of Grenada, Caribbean Code of Justice, and Renaming of the Supreme Court Amendment Act 2018.
Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill part by part.
All those, the question is that this Honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill part by part. All those who are of the opinion say aye. Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The House is now in committee.
Part 2, substituting the Caribbean Code of Justice for Her Majesty in Council.
The question is that Clause 2, substituting the Caribbean Court of Justice for Her Majesty in Council, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 3, repeal of the West Indies Associated States Appeal to Privy Council Order 1967 and the West Indies Associated States Appeals to Privy Council Grenada Order 1967.
The question is that part 3, repeal of West Indies Associated States Appeals to Privy Council Order 1967 and West Indies Associated States Appeals to Privy Council Grenada Order 1967 forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 4, general, savings, and transitional.
The question is that Part 4, general, savings, transitional, forms part of the bill. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 5, styling the Supreme Court, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court.
The question is that that part 5 forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 6, styling the court's order, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court order.
The question is that part 6 forms part of the bill. Styling the court's order, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court order. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 7, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court generally.
The question is that part 7, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court generally, forms part of the bill. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Part 1, preliminary.
The question is that part 1, preliminary, forms part of the bill. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
The question is that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. As many as are of the opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This Honorable Senate now resumes. I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole Senate and passed without amendment.
Mr. Deputy President, I beg to move the chairman's report be adopted.
The question is that the chairman's report be adopted. As many as are of the opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senator Steele.
Mr. Deputy President, I beg to move the third reading for the bill, and if I could ask for a division report so we can indicate positions of each member.
As indicated before we started, Senator, this morning, and my comments on this bill, I did say we were going to ask for division. So I now ask the clerk to proceed.
Honorable Simon Steele.
Aye.
Honorable George Cadet. Honorable Nolan Cox. Honorable Winston Dowie.
Aye.
Honorable Kim George is absent.
Aye.
Aye.
Honorable Dunstan Camp.
Aye.
Honorable Mondi Andre Lewis.
Abstention on the basis until the amendment has been addressed. To get a response on that, so I abstain.
So we now go to the second. Clerk, 01, can you please indicate the results of the 7 ayes, 1 abstention.
7 ayes, 1 abstention,
And
3 absence. 3 persons absent.
Yeah, 7 ayes.
Yes, 7 ayes. Yes, 7.
So we do have a simple majority.
Simple majority. You are.
Yes.
Yeah, so
we
you
do have
have
a simple
8.
majority. Right, so as we stated, once we have a simple majority, we are now can move to the third reading. Senator Steele?
Deputy President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. The question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Constitution of Grenada, Caribbean Council, Caribbean Code of Justice, and Renaming of Supreme Court Amendment Act 2018.
Item number 16, public business. Item number 17, adjournment.
Senator Williams?
Mr. Deputy President, as I believe this is the appointed time, I have not yet had the opportunity to deliver my maiden address, so I seek your leave to do so.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy President, if you may allow me to read just a bit. Thank you. Mr. Deputy President, honorable members, the enormity of the function which I am expected to perform as a member of the legislative arm of my country is not lost on me. From the moment I accepted our Prime Minister's call to serve in the Senate to this moment today, I am continuously aware of my responsibility to uphold the democratic traditions of our political institutions, to channel the remonstrations and aspirations of the nation, and to make laws for the betterment and well-being of our people. This daunting role is neither one that I had ever imagined performing, nor one that a few political science courses at UWI could have ever prepared me for. However, it is a role that I feel most grateful and honored to have been charged with, and one which I hope to effectively fulfill with the guidance of the divine, the support of my family and colleagues, and by my adherence to a few fundamental principles. The principles to which I refer are not academic or obscure, but they are the basic universal principles which have been transmitted through our ancestors and taught through our folklore and religions. Stated informally, these include being kind to others, doing unto others as you would like them do unto you, and loving your neighbor as yourself. I believe that with the application of these very basic mores, we can realize the ideal outcome of any task in any aspect of our lives, and the legislature is no different. Therefore, I pray that the laws which we pass are a reflection of the love that we have for our neighbors, the kind regard we give to our brothers, the well wishes we have even for those who wish us harm, and a reflection of the reality that we want to shape equally for ourselves and the people we serve. There are many perceptions of what it is that we do in these chambers, as senators, as ministers, as constituency representatives, and I dare say the P word, as politicians. Historically, many of these impressions are cynical or pessimistic and are often influenced by the public sense of being removed from the decision-making processes. These negative impressions are also influenced by the human tendency to magnify and sensationalize scandalous political events while remaining mum or significantly less enthusiastic about praiseworthy achievements. It doesn't help that our international political scene is reminiscent of reality TV shows or soap operas, especially in recent times. To address the ensuing pervasive sense of political apathy, there has been an international effort to revamp the faces of our parliamentary assemblies so that they can better reflect the diversity of the people they represent. Consequently, the United Kingdom and Canadian parliaments are now the most diverse they have ever been in their history, with a rise in the number of women and ethnic minority MPs. Not to be left behind, our parliament is one of the most diverse in our nation's history, with more female and youth representation than ever before. I believe that the diverse composition of this parliament is a testament to this government's commitment to embody the views of and to make laws for all people, for every representative group of our society. And I am proud to lend my voice to this discourse as a woman, as a youth, as an attorney, as a daughter of the parish of St. John. It is my hope that this historic 10th Parliament can help to improve or further improve the antiquated perception of politics so that it may be viewed as the noble and enlightened activity that it is. Hannah Arendt, a German political theorist, argued that politics is the most important form of human activity because it involves interaction amongst free and equal citizens. It thus gives meaning to life and affirms the uniqueness of each individual. This public character of our assemblies and the all-inclusiveness of our democracy is the reason that any person from any walk of life may have the opportunity to sit in these national debating chambers. Even a gangly little girl of very modest means, who at one point wanted to find the cure for AIDS and cancer, and who sometimes had the awkward task of explaining to her peers why her father named her Lenin after the communist Russian revolutionary. That little girl was me. Fortunately, to the relief of some, my political persuasions do not exactly mirror those of my namesake. Growing up an only child, often immersed in my creative pursuits, I had many ambitions, and although I developed an academic interest in the science of politics and government, my ambitions were never of a political nature. However, my acceptance of the senatorial position, after much reflection, was a decision grounded in the realization that individual goals are secondary to the greater good, and serving the people of Grenada is a privilege that should never be eschewed. I was also guided by my father's words that as human beings, we may not always be aware of our potentials or our purposes, but there are moments when we may be guided to a higher calling, and we must be prepared to accept or answer that call. I must thank Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell for facilitating that call and the confidence that he has reposed in me by moving my appointment. I would not have even been eligible for any such elevation if it wasn't for the nurture and sacrifice of Jane and Martin Williams, my loving parents, who taught me at an early age the importance of education, of good manners, and ironically, of fighting for what you believe in, that is. I am forever grateful for their unconditional support and the support of my other family members, friends, colleagues, and anyone who has ever expressed a word of encouragement to me. Thanks to Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, and the honorable members, my introduction to Parliament has thus far been a pleasant one, and I look forward to working with you collectively to engineer the great Grenadian future. I envision that this will entail tackling many contemporary issues, such as climate change and the environment, the implications of global trade disputes, and constitutional reform. Certainly, I imagine that the ongoing concerns of poverty, unemployment, and social services will also be addressed. I am encouraged by the legislation that has been passed thus far in the short life of this 10th session, and hope that it is an indication of the great things ahead. I trust this session will be a transformative one, that we will represent purely and fully the interests of the people, that we will provide scrutiny and oversight, that we will strive for necessity rather than political expediency, and that through our actions, we would further cement the legitimacy of our great democracy. I am happy and blessed to be an agent in this most rewarding vocation. I thank you.
Mr. President, I beg to move the adjournment sine die.
Honorable members, the question is that this honorable Senate be adjourned. But before we go there, I just want to comment and say that Senator Williams, after that maiden voyage speech that you should have given the last time, but you weren't here, I am now more reinforced that when fellows like myself and the leader of government business fade from this honorable Senate, we are assured that the quality of the young senators that we have is going to certainly do us proud to carry on the traditions of this very honorable house. So, with that said, honorable members, the question is that this honorable Senate be adjourned sine die. All those who have that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. This honorable Senate stands adjourned sine die.
Prepare for hurricane. Prepare for hurricane. Make sure you have your radio and your batteries too. Waterproof flashlight candles will do thin stuff. Garbage bag, first aid kit. Come on, people, make sure you have it. Clean water in a container and a hurricane plan. Hear me, no man.
Hurricane damage is beyond your control. Surviving the aftermath is up to you. Have a hurricane plan. It can save your life and your family too.
Prepare for hurricane. Your hair, prepare for hurricane.
My wife was always getting on my case about smoking. She said it's bad for you, makes the drapes smell. She even threatened to stop kissing me if I didn't quit. I said, it's my lungs and it's my life. But I was wrong. I didn't quit. I had no idea the life I'd lose wasn't mine. It was hers. She was my life. My wife was my life.
Afternoon, Granny. Afternoon, Dodo. But where are you going this Monday?
I'm going to buy a Petro Caribbean, yes.
Well, let me help you.
No, child. Don't go straight in you like you want to put me in trouble.
Granny, don't worry. This is Petro Caribbean. Watch.
Bonche! Watch out the child raise the thing like you like a piranha. Put it down.
Granny, my mother say, Petrocarb LPG, easy to handle. Safe and secure, you can watch your water and see when it gets finishing. And you know what? It's cheaper than the rest.
Thank you, Dodo.
Petrocarib, energy for union, available at distributors and retailers across Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique.
How beautiful is this? The new jetty on the award-winning Grandance Beach, where it's safe, stable, and secure.
Good morning, everyone. I now call this ceremony to order. Parliamentary Representative for South St. George, Honorable Nicholas Steele. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation, Ms. Arlene Buckmeyer-Outram. Advisor in the Ministry of Tourism, Mrs. Brenda Hood. Other Ministry of Tourism officials, GTA CEO Patricia Ma. Other GTA officials, Carleen Haynes, representative of the contractors Intrepid Civil and Marine Grenada Limited, Deacon Anthony Joseph, Grandance Parish, other specially invited guests, members of the media. Good morning to all. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome everyone here for the official commissioning and blessing of the Grandance Jetty, an important symbol of our tourism product here in Grenada. To begin this morning's ceremony, I now invite Deacon Anthony Joseph to bless these proceedings and invite God's presence.
We pray to Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, we thank you for all here present. We thank you, Lord, for this commissioning of this new jetty. We pray, Heavenly Father, that there are many blessings will fall upon those who use it to the benefit of themselves and to our country. All this we pray to thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Over the past few months, the Ministry of Tourism and the Grenada Tourism Authority have worked closely to ensure that this structure was rebuilt better after the original structure was damaged late last year. I now invite the CEO of the GTA, Ms. Patricia Ma, to deliver some brief remarks.
Thank you so much, Ria. And welcome, welcome, welcome. Protocol having already been established, I would just like to start and say that this Grandance new jetty build was a labor of love. Yeah. On behalf of the Grenada Tourism Association, the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation, and all the tourism stakeholders in Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique, this was a labor of love. We have here on this lovely, famous 2-mile Grand Anse Beach, one of our biggest assets in tourism. In fact, USA Today voted this beach the best beach in the Caribbean earlier this year, and that was a reader's choice. So we have the best beach in the Caribbean, hands down. Opposite us is the charming Spice and Vendors Craft Market, another big asset for our visitors and locals. And I encourage everybody to visit it and meet the spice vendors and enjoy some food and drink. Yeah. So again, we have another significant asset for our visitors right here on Grand Anse Beach. And as you just heard from Ria, yes, last year, Hurricane Maria took away our floating jetty, which had undergone several repairs. In fact, in the last 2 years, significant repairs to that same floating jetty. So it was on its last legs, we know that, and Maria took it away. Yeah. So the decision was taken to build a new jetty, a permanent structure, one that can withstand the harsh weather conditions that sometimes reach our shores. It was very important that this jetty would blend in with our gorgeous environment. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful, ladies and gentlemen? Right? We are so lucky. And this jetty blends in. It's unobtrusive. And it's perfect for our environment. It was also important that the users of the jetty were happy with its purpose. So we took feedback into consideration in the actual construction of the jetty. And of course, the main users of the jetty are our cruise passengers who come to Grenada on the cruise ships, and they love to take the water taxi. It's actually one of their favorite attractions when they come to Grenada, from Melville Street to Grand Anse Beach. And of course, we had to make sure that those cruise passengers had a lovely experience coming and going from Grand Anse Beach. So our cruise consultant did a test run. We have a cruise consultant right now engaging us to improve our cruise passenger experience. And he did a test run of the service in May with our very own Water Taxi Association. And he was very satisfied with the experience for cruise passengers in Grenada with the new and improved Grand Anse jetty build. So Grenada is experiencing a growth of 26.5% in cruise passenger arrivals in the season January to June 2018. So for the first half of the year, we had 26.5% more cruise passengers coming into Grenada than in the previous winter season. And we are looking forward to a phenomenal cruise season coming up to add to our newest asset to our tourism product, the Grand Anse Jetty. Thank you very much.
And it is in the constituency of the parliamentary representative for the South, Honorable Nicholas Steele. Indeed, the South is an important hub for Grenada's tourism. I now invite Minister Steele to deliver remarks.
Good morning to you all, and in particular my cabinet colleague, Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation, Clarice Modest-Kerwin, Special Advisor to the Ministry of Tourism, Brenda Hood, my dear sister, Auntie Brenda, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation, other senior officials of the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation, as well as GTA, and in particular Ms. Patricia Ma, our Executive Director there, all dignitaries, special invited guests, and in particular, thank you for the blessing, Deacon Joseph. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this morning, a proud moment to show that not only that this is one of the first major infrastructural improvements that I am here to officiate over as the representative, but seeing that in the short space of time from when the pre-existing facility was damaged, the speed and efficiency at which the GTA and all of the stakeholders got things going to start and to complete the current facility that we see here. Recognizing for many years all involved were trying to find a way to improve the existing facilities, and that we were able to pull together within weeks of the jetty, old jetty being damaged, to start construction on a new jetty. Like all things with infrastructure improvements, there are always pluses and minuses. There have been comments concerning the location of this jetty. I have weighed in on it as well, as now the representative, to say that any jetty, this jetty in particular on Grand Anse Beach, must serve all of the stakeholders, all. And those stakeholders are, one, as Ms. Ma mentioned, the tourists who come, but in particular, as a representative, must also serve the water taxi association and owners, and the vendors market, the hotels, and all who use the beach. And as such, in order, in almost every occasion when an attempt is made to please all, there is a request to make compromises by some. So I want to thank those who are not, as far as they're concerned, in their ideal location. I want to thank them for the compromises they have made so that the GTA can make sure that as many people as possible are served as best as possible with the location. Because as has been said, the location is now permanent and goes beyond any one particular stakeholder, and therefore a location must be chosen. And I think I want to congratulate the GTA for finally answering the call of those who pay at the vendors market, have been paying for years rent, that the jetty is now closer to them, so that it is now more accessible to their users, their main users, who are those who come off the cruise ships. So as we move on, I look forward to putting the challenge forward that what we are going to open and bless today is not the final product. It is what will serve us right now very well, but that I look forward to working with the GTA and all involved to improving these facilities, improving the access from this facility to the vendors market, improving the facility itself, enhancing it, making it fit even more into the beautiful environment that we have, and also working in general as a representative in the South with the GTA and all stakeholders on ensuring that our crown jewel, our Grand Anse Beach, continues to serve the people of Grenada as best as possible, all the people of Grenada. So thank you all, and it is indeed, once more, a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thank you, Minister Steele. All right, moving on with the program. It now gives me pleasure to invite our esteemed Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation, Honorable Clarice Modeste Kerwin, to deliver remarks on this happy occasion.
Mistress of ceremony, a pleasant good morning to all. It is indeed a pleasant morning. I see smiles on some faces, and those where I don't see the smile, I know the smile is somewhere in their heart. It's going to come. It's going to come. I want to recognize my colleague minister and parliamentary representative for this part of the island, Honorable Nicholas Steele, my permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation, Mrs. Arlene Outram, and other senior staff in the ministry, our CEO, Sister Patricia Marr, and her staff as well. My advisor, whom I cannot do without, Mrs. Brenda Hood, our deacon, Mr. Anthony Joseph, who would have done the invocation and would do the blessing, members of the police force, Grenada Police Force, members of the Taxi Association, and perhaps other people from the tourism industry, whichever walk of life you come from. And we couldn't do anything without having our media person. Good morning to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to finally be able to be a part of this important ceremony for the opening of this jetty. First of all, I must apologize for my lateness. I was trying to juggle this with another, a conference call that has to do with tourism as well. It took a little bit longer, but I want to assure you I left it because this is just as important. And just as we had some hiccups when the location for this jetty was being determined, and some people were panicking, including me, getting heart attack because some people weren't happy, some people were not, and we moved around. I know there was a little heart attack about me being here, but I'm happy to be here, and I want to assure you that I was doing the nation's business just half an hour ago as well. The thing about tourism is that it's everybody's business. That's the good thing about it. Whatever walk of life you come from, whether you're directly involved in the industry or not, tourism affects your life. First of all, because it's the biggest single income earner in this country. And even the data that we have that is not as comprehensive as it should be still says that tourism, we're responsible for the single biggest income earner here. But also it employs so many people directly. Our water taxi operators, so many of them are employed directly in the industry. Our taxi men and tour operators, so many people, our vendors who are just over there, and so on and so on. So it is important. And this aspect of it, while it may not directly touch the lives of some people, does in fact, because people come for this beautiful beach that received so many kudos in 2018, 2019, best beach in the Caribbean, best whatever. People want to come here. And so the people who take them right here, maybe they just come directly from the cruise ship right onto here. Isn't that so? Some go other places, but some just want to be here on our beautiful, pristine Grand Anse Beach in pure Grenada. So to the water taxi men, I want to say thank you to you and much appreciation for finally working along with us to have this problem resolved. And also to Mr. Connor, I don't see him here, but he and whoever represents him, I know we had several site visits. They were very patient, very professional, and very efficient in the provision of information and so on that made us finally agree on this. So I have great expectations for this, the water taxi part of our tourism industry and what it's going to bring. The good thing is that it also coincides with growing numbers in terms of cruise arrivals in Grenada. So it's just a happy time for us to have this problem out of the way and now found a solution that will bring people safely onto our pristine beach. I want to assure you that this is not the only aspect of the Grand Anse Beach that we're looking at. Many here and others who are not here know that we're working assiduously to ensure that Grand Anse is peaceful. The peace of Grenada is something that we market and we hold very dear. And so when people are brought here by our water taxis to pristine, pure Grenada, Grand Anse Beach, they must have peace. They must feel safe. They must not be harassed. They must also feel confident that should any mishap happen out there in the water, that our, how do we call them? Our safety, how do we call them? Our lifeguards are there to protect them. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the people who police these beaches, and we're working to ensure that we give the people, our visitors, the maximum experience that they could get, and so that they become repeat visitors, and so that not only will they become repeat cruise visitors, but stay over passengers as well. And as I mentioned, that our numbers are growing there too. Yachting is growing. So Grenada is looking good. And our CEO, and I can tell you that from our last visit in New York with CTO, Caribbean Islands, Caribbean Week in New York, that Grenada was featured repeatedly and repeatedly. So we're looking good out there, but we have to look good here. When people hear a story and experience, they expect that, and they expect us to top it a little more. And so we have to work as a team. Our parliamentary rep, our CEO, everybody, we have to work as a team, because this is everybody's business. If this fails, tourism fails. If this is unsafe, we fail. Because now with the day of information technology, as somebody falls off, the whole world knows. And they rate us because of that. And that can either make them come more or come less. So this infrastructure, it seems very simple, but it's so important that the quality of service that we provide here is second to none. And that the collaboration we have with everybody, be it the tour operators, be it the taxi men, be it the people who provide the security here. And I think I took time out to recognize the member of the police force and others who are here. You are so priceless to what we do and the experience that people have. So every one of us, it's all our business. And I trust that we will all play our part so that the experience here would perhaps incentivize people to have an experience in Annandale Waterfall, to go to, if that is their first taste of pure Grenada, they will want more. And as I speak of pure Grenada, I want to encourage all of us, and we have the media here, let's keep it pure. The pure is not by accident. It was by design. Because one, we know that Grenada has many pristine locations still, and we try to keep it as clean as possible through Grenada Solid Waste. Grenada Solid Waste perhaps doesn't know how much of a role they play in the tourism sector, but they do. So we are indeed unfolding the concept and supporting the concept that tourism is everybody's business. I know Sister Curl has been teaching the schools, she and her team, how to keep tourism, what tourism is all about, what role they could play, how so many different professions you could learn from tourism, etc., etc., etc. And I know we're going to be talking more about what we've been doing, but I just want to mention the fact that we guard this pure Grenada concept very jealously, to the fact where government is going to be taking legislation to Parliament very soon in terms of what we use, how we dispose of it, and what we should not be using. But that is for another time. You'll hear more about it. But suffice it to say that the GHT has been pushing, that GTA has been pushing, that the Minister for Health and parliamentary representative have been pushing. And there's a lot of support for it all over, and we'll be hearing that soon. So, brothers and sisters, I know we had, out of a disaster cometh good. We repaired this jetty, we repaired it until it could be repaired no more. But when we had the last natural disaster with the problem with the waves and it was knocked down, then it was time to build a new one. So sometimes some things have to go that far before we can do it. I want to thank the GTA for part financing this, because we have so much to do. We have to market, we have to train, so much to do, but they prioritize that. And I want to ask you, let us give them a round of applause for their input into this thing. And of course, it couldn't happen without the Minister for Finance and the finance team approving that expenditure. So we have to thank them for that. And there were other private sector persons who played their role in financing and supporting either in cash or in kind to make this thing happen. Let us remember that tourism is everybody's business, and so many people play a role. Let us make them feel happy that whatever they contributed to is going to be appreciated and make the difference. May God bless all of us as we officially open this facility, and may it bring many, many tourists a happy and enjoyable and unforgettable experience in pure Grenada, Isle of Spice. I thank you.
Minister, on that note, I will just switch the program slightly, then we will move on to the ribbon cutting and blessing.
We proclaim or believe that all things work together for the good of those who fear and love God. We are sure that in all things we must seek the help of God, so that in complete reliance of His will, we may in Christ do everything for His glory. As we read in the letter of St. Paul to Timothy, for everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected when received with thanksgiving, for it is made holy by the invocation of God in prayer. And so, brothers and sisters, we pray to Almighty God, who is blessed above all, to confer His blessing upon us and all who will be using this facility. We pray that they use it to the benefit not only of themselves, but of our country at large. Amen. And now, as we bless the altar, the bridge, we all say it together after the cutting, the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah. What am I doing now?
Pure Grenada, all smiles.
The Carib's name is Carriacou, which means the land surrounded by reefs, and today it is known as the cradle of culture for its rich heritage passed on by the African and European descendants. Carriacou features the Maroon and String Band Festival, the Big Drum Nation Dance, and the Shakespeare Mass at Carnival. But what's really unique about Carriacou is the boat building culture. Let's learn some more.
Carriacou sloops, I think, is one of the most prettiest sloops that we have around. All right, and especially when they when you put the sails on them and you put them on the seawater and they start sailing. So I believe that is one of the difference between our sloops here and other sloops around. Well, our designs here is more like the Nova Scotia design and not in the Scottish design. And you know what really happened is a lot of people, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that to say the Scottish people came here to build vessels for us. But for me, I don't believe that because of the designs, the different designs in it. You know, our designs is more like this Nova Scotia designs. They are the same thing, but not the Scottish design.
You can go to Barbados, Jamaica, you can go to all these different islands. And in a lot of islands, you can do a lot of the same things. You can do canopy tours, you can do things that every single island has, okay? No other island has this. Carriacou and Petit Martinique are the only islands in the Caribbean that has boat building on this scale.
At Windward is part of the culture of the people of Windward. So I have poems on boat building. So we do poems, and of course we bring them to the beach and explain the parts of the boat and talk to the shipwrights and so on. So we do that to keep the culture alive.
So being an alumni from the university, I've immersed myself in the culture in Grenada and love it since first came here. And being on loving sailboats and I lived in my sailboat when I was here, going to school. I started hearing about the sloops and the tradition of the building of the sloops.
Is a hand-on tradition from grandparents to uncle, father to children. So, and going around them and walking on holidays, yeah.
Well, Windward is where we have is a boat building village in Carriacou. And if this thing had gone from here, everything gone now.
What drove us to make this film, for me personally, it's very personal because my grandfather is, and my parents, my mother is from Carriacou, so from Windward. So Jassy Compton that you saw in the film is my great uncle. And that personal level of remembering spending childhoods here in Windward, in Carriacou, was what drove me to find that passion, find that emotion, and bring that through in the film about how important this, not only the boat building is, but how important Carriacou is to me.
It took a really long time. It took 3 years of filming, and during that time we had many setbacks, many challenges, and it's not an easy thing building a vessel, and it's not an easy thing making a film.
Join us next time on Pure Talk.
My cabinet colleague and Minister with Responsibility for Youth Development, the Honorable Keith Lewis, members of the Youth Division of the Ministry of